Hey guys, what's up? Flicks here to talk about the OHM situation once again. Don't worry, this video will not be as long as the previous. I didn't even want to do a sequel video to begin with, even after the TJV interview that happened around a month ago. But TJV also made a video recently going back over that interview with some key points. He also showed some messages between him and OHM in a video that he made after that. I feel that he missed out on certain key points that he should have expanded on. And on top of that, OHM not acknowledging or even showing any relative shame towards some of the wrongdoings that he's responsible for during that whole event, and just pretending that nothing has really happened, going about his life as normal. All of that together kind of made me say, you know what, I'm gonna make a sequel video that kind of pisses me off. I also want to make a few corrections to further the accuracy of the information in my last video, which if you haven't watched, you probably won't be able to follow along very well, so you're gonna have to watch that first. Please do so. You won't regret it. Now, in the TJV interview that happened after the Keemstar interview, there's some pretty revealing stuff. There's also some comparisons and contradictions, and things he says that when compared to some of the tweets or things that he said on Drama Alert that I will point out that other people haven't really caught on to that really just don't match up. Now, of course, be sure to like this video and subscribe, and let's get right into it. Now, as far as the prank with Delirious goes, the people who set him up was Marcel and Mexecutioner, not Marcel and Louis. Louis was just one of the individuals who was sharing the video to people, I believe, like Wildcat. Sorry for the little mix-up there. Had a lot of information to dig through. Got a little lost in the sauce. Also, Bria Lynn, who Delirious had only known for a short time before the prank was conducted. He actually friended her on Xbox, not on PlayStation, as I stated in my last video. It's a small detail, but I felt it was worth clearing up. Also want to clear up that the incident where Wildcat lied to OHM by saying that Marcel was the only one in the group who didn't like OHM, in order to make OHM feel better, like, oh, everybody else in the group likes you. And then OHM contacted Marcel, and Marcel was like, dude, that's not true. I'm not the only one that doesn't like you. Everybody else in the group is annoyed with you. Whoever told you that I was the only one who didn't like you lied to you. That whole debacle, that happened all the way back in November of 2019, I believe. But the events where messages and tweets came out from other members in the VANOSS crew acknowledging the fact that, yes, we are all annoyed with OHM, and we never really felt like he was a part of the group to begin with, that whole thing happened in 2020. Okay, now that all of that is cleared up, the TJV interview. Now, TJV does show some obvious bias. He is a big fan of some of these other stars, and I can feel some slight leanings towards them in the interview. I did get the impression that he would probably try to defend them no matter what, in my honest opinion. But he does ask a lot of good questions throughout the interview that need to be acknowledged and shown and talked about. And OHM, from the get-go, was very calm, cool, and collected. In the beginning of the interview, he was making some good points himself. He was able to straighten things out regarding some trolls on Twitter claiming that he tried to protect Mini-Lad, which, guys, I went through all of the messages, all of the tweets for the past year, thousands and thousands of tweets and messages. And what I found was when the evidence came out, he had a clear cutoff between him and Mini. If you believe that after the evidence came out, OHM was trying to defend and protect Mini, that is BS. That's a lie. He did give Mini the benefit of the doubt when the accusations first started coming up a few months in the beginning because OHM was waiting on evidence, but once the evidence came out, OHM did drop Mini. That's just the facts. He then also went on to specify who he was targeting and who he wasn't targeting, but the interview started falling apart towards the halfway point. We're going to show how he carefully words and interprets things to protect himself, tactful use of childish semantics and hyperbole, where he contradicts himself and where he shows his bluff regarding statements in the interview. One of the more upfront and obvious false statements by OHM is something he repeats multiple times regarding more evidence that he has or is planning to leak, and that the evidence that he's currently leaked is nothing, it's just the tip of the iceberg.
It's full of so many things out of context that has probably nothing to do with any of that, and you're throwing it up there to make them seem worse than they are.
You have not seen, trust me, dude, that is like 2%.
Okay, if every explanation you're going to give is, oh, you haven't seen the truth yet,
it's coming.
then...
Well, hey, you make content, dude. This shit's real. Listen, you'll see.
He starts doing this when he eventually comes to terms that a lot of the so-called evidence he brings forward bears very little weight or proof and are circumstantial or purely based on assumption at best. Then he started claiming, oh, well, don't worry, there's more to come. This just tipped the iceberg. There's so much more you guys haven't seen. You have no idea how big this stuff is. You got to believe me, blah, 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 blah. You know, this stuff that you're dismissing and totally showing is presented with no context. Yeah, this isn't even my best stuff.
Agree with, or you think that is false. What are you going to do?
Then when, you know, it'll either be addressed in when I bring things forward, or
so your classic excuse, when the evidence comes out, we'll see.
All right, hey TJV, it's nice talking to you, man.
All right, go. See you later, man.
Later.
But now it's been well over a month, and it's becoming pretty apparent that the stuff OHM presented up front right from the get-go was probably the best evidence or proof that he had. And when people called bullshit, his response was to say, well, this isn't even the good stuff. I've got more. You got to trust me, bro. And then he never presented anything because in all likelihood, he probably really didn't have anything more or better to give. Now, remember how in my last video I pointed out how Ohm will say something or present something that's meant to give off a certain impression without being super direct, and that way he has plausible deniability, and when he gets called out, he can later go back and reinterpret what he then claims he actually meant, knowing damn well what impression or message his original tweet or statement gave off to the reader. And in this TJV interview, the subject of context is brought up a lot, mostly referring to the lack of context in a lot of the tweets included in the Google Drive. Again, to recap, Ohm dropped a Google Drive full of tweets, many of which had zero context because the tweets they're replying to are from a long since deleted account. Wildcat pointed out that this lack of context Ohm is trying to use to further false insinuations. TJV points out most of the tweets in the Google Doc are not sufficient evidence because they're being presented with little to no context. Have a listen.
No, but you talking about it can, you know what I mean? So
bringing that up with the tweet with the proof shown right up above. Anything could be taken out of context if that's what you mean. Just like how you're taking a lot of their old tweets out of context. If you weren't personally there for majority of those tweets, they're out of context once you screen grab them, because you don't know the context behind the tweet. You don't know the context on the time they were posted and stuff like that. Stuff can be taken out of context from 2 years ago and seem.
TJV, dude, I'm sorry, man. You're way too defensive for them.
And now Ohm gets to reinterpret what out of context really means in order to claim his innocence. He claims he didn't take anything out of context because in order to do that, he would have to first assign context to each of those individual tweets or messages that have zero context, which he didn't. He just presented a bunch of tweets without context for people to create the context in their own imagination. Have a listen.
Evidence is coming, right? The
TJV,
evidence is coming.
Hold up. To present something out of context, don't you have to present it and talk about it? You can't say it's been taken out of context when it's not even been discussed.
Okay.
Like he wasn't going through Wildcat's tweets saying, okay, what about this? What about that? Like,
you could see signs that, in my opinion, it's grooming. It wasn't just Bria Lynn, it was Meow Michelle, and there's several other girls too that we were finding that were interacting with different guys. They were soliciting nudes actively.
So yes, he didn't technically assign context to each individual tweet that was presented without context, but what he did do was have a conversation about accusations claiming those individuals mentioned in the doc are predators. And in the context of that conversation, he then presented the Google document for people to look at and make their own assumptions. He presented those messages in the Google Doc under the context of the conversation about his accusations. So maybe you didn't go through them one by one to assign context to them individually, but you still gave them blanketed context under the accusations and insinuations in the conversation of which you presented them, knowing damn well that the context of the conversation would have influence on the assumptions or conclusions made by the reader regarding those tweets that have no context. And that would then have influence what the reader might personally conclude the context of those tweets might have been. You presented tweets with zero context for the reader to use their imagination on what that context might have been, and then gave them an assumption of predatory accusations. So he tries to hide behind technicality and semantics to protect himself, because usually when presenting technicalities, it can take a moment for the person questioning you to navigate around that, to peg you with more questions, but it's not really working. Listen to his response on being called out on this.
Okay, so what was the purpose of you presenting that in the first place and giving that to Keem?
it wasn't meant to be public.
But he made it public.
I didn't even know he was going to do that.
Okay.
I don't even think people have like noticed that folder.
Bruh. You can see he realizes his excuses aren't working, so he claims that those documents weren't even supposed to be made public. They weren't even supposed to be in the doc, you know? He had no idea that Keemstar was going to make that stuff public. He really wasn't trying to present it as any hard evidence. He claims he just threw it together really quick in like under a minute or some shit.
I don't even, dude, it literally prepared in like probably a minute. Just very quick and meant for reference.
What was the purpose of you presenting that in the first place and giving that to Keem?
It wasn't meant to be public.
But he made it public.
I didn't even know he was going to do that.
Now let's go back and take a listen to the Keemstar interview.
Right? Instead of like continuing to brush this under the rug. I mean, they've been deleting thousands of tweets, tens of millions of video views.
Yeah, I'm actually going to link a Google drive or whatever that you sent me of all these deleted tweets that have happened. And if you look at their social blades, I mean, you could see that they've been frantically deleting tweets recently.
Yes,
so
thousands.
I mean, that looks bad. I mean, look, there's going to be people that say, where's the evidence? You know, where's the proof? You know, well, you know, you have all these tweets that they've just recently deleted. that reference the situation that you're talking about that allegedly happened. I mean, that's where there's smoke, there's fire, right? You know, if there is if there's an explanation for these tweets other than what they say, I would love to hear it. And you know, obviously H2O, Louis, Mini Lad,
Wildcat, even you'll see Wildcat.
All these people, right? My platform is yours, and you know, if you want to come on and kind of defend this stuff, you have an open invitation.
It seems he was well aware that it was going to be public, and he didn't show any attempt to tell Keem to stop or wait, or I'd rather you not do that. He obviously didn't have any objection with it being made public. Until, of course, after people saw through his attempt to persuading hearts and minds through the use of tying assumptions with tweets that were presented with no context. Then he claims, oh, well, I didn't want them to be released to begin with. Now, in this clip, he talks about the message he received from a girl claiming to have sent underage photos to Delirious. But this girl he is talking about is the one that turned out to be an OnlyFans star, who made up the false claim that she was underage and was private messaging underage photos to Delirious.
Listen, and I'm going to say this again. I talked to a girl that literally reported to Delirious for child porn. Like, none of this shit is made up. I'm sorry, dude. And if they want to test it, have them sue me. Like, you know, by all means.
So she messaged this claim to Ohm, and Ohm publicly tweeted about it before investigating and finding out that she was not only of age, but was talking to Delirious about her OnlyFans. And I'm pretty sure this interview was after Liz Cat had contacted the OnlyFans star and proven Ohm's allegation to be false. Yet here he is still trying to perpetuate that false story presented in that tweet that after days of backlash and debunking, he eventually decided to delete. He then gets questioned even harder on the subject of context, on why he included all that extra stuff in the document, when he now insinuates that that stuff really isn't that important, or doesn't really matter, and that only 1 or 2 tweets in those documents he sees as truly relevant or as evidence. So he gets asked, if those 2 tweets are the only ones that truly matter, why did you throw in all the other tweets that you now say aren't relevant to the topic? Why include all those extra tweets that have little, if not absolutely zero context? And his answer is quite hilarious.
Oh, no, I was saying I wanted to highlight this one specific tweet.
Okay, so you leaked all the other
Breland.
tweets with it. You
No, I'm
shared
talking
all the
about our
other-
discussion.
Okay, yes, in our discussion. Okay, but it comes back to the main question on Drama Alert. In that description, that Google Doc that everyone can access and see those tweets clearly.
It was a quick grab of a very narrow, like, section of tweets as an emergence, like a super rapid thing that Keem said, like, you know, send me something really fast. There was no real preparation in this, whatever is in there. I don't even know everything that's in there 100%. Like I said, it was a very, very quick thing, and it was not meant for...
That's very dangerous, Ohm. I mean, just... You're literally sitting here... You didn't even know it was in those folders before you sent them to Keem?
Barely. It was literally this window of time with, like...
Yes, Keemstar wanted me to give him evidence regarding the accusations of underage sexual interactions that I had, so I gave him a Google Doc without realizing or really knowing what all I put in that bad boy. You see what I mean about this interview kind of just falling apart?
Video from Keemstar made about him on Drama Alert. They're gonna get...
So get mad at Keem. The tweets, but get mad at Keem that they're linked.
It's really clear that he uses an absence of context to his advantage, or at least he feels that he's able to do that, like presenting an idea or an accusation or an assumption on the foundation that's completely absent of context. That's his bread and butter. This is how this guy loves to talk, especially when he feels that he can bullshit you afterwards into believing that he was somehow coming from a basis of context, or he somehow did, in fact, expand on context or present new context when he really didn't, regarding the most important topics that were at hand.
You can't say it's been taken out of context when it's not even been discussed.
Okay, you have one tweet there where Delirious is included, but then you have all these other tweets where Delirious isn't even mentioned in the conversation.
Right, and we're not talking about those.
Okay.
No, I mean, listen, I've tried to give you some context.
Like, Jesus, dude. At one point, he calls Wildcat weak.
So he says, I'm shaking his pants because Wildcat's here. No, Wildcat is a weak man. Like, I'm not intimidated by him. He threatened me last year physically, and then trying to get me to play games with him again 2 months ago is...
Then again goes back to his claim that Wildcat threatened him with physical violence last year, referring to this message, where, as you can read, Wildcat makes no such threat. It later turned out Ohm said he just felt threatened, and that his lawyer also claimed it looked threatening as well. He also made it pretty clear, or maybe not so clear, that he wanted Wildcat on, but maybe not.
I just gotta say, Wildcat, you're.
I mean, you are stating a lot of him on like here, so I think his.
So bring him on, like talk to him.
I think
like,
he's
if it just.
bring him on here.
Well, no.
During this interview, Ohm received a message where he learned Kelly was threatening a lawsuit against him. Ohm then goes on this tirade about how confident he is about his claims and says, "Bring it on. Do what you want. Try to sue me. That's how confident I am that my claims are true."
Wildcat,
that's kind of
sue me. Let's put this to test, dude.
Oh, really?
No, for
Like,
real.
What do you mean for real?
Do you know what I've dealt
I
with
could
the-
I
with
can
the-
hear you
the
smirking
thread?
as you're saying this.
Let's see Wildcat put his money where his mouth is. Let's do this. Like somebody sent me a screenshot of just while we were talking of Nilksky or whatever Kelly saying that she's contacting her lawyers. Let's do it, man. Let's do it.
But then when Ohm is actually given the chance to talk with Wildcat on the stream, have a listen to one of his reasons for not wanting to do so.
Wildcat said he doesn't care if you unblock him. He wants to do this on the live stream. We had our chance to do it private. My name should have never been mentioned, and you know it. So he wants to talk to you here if there is a conversation to be had. That's what it's making it seem like.
I just don't know. I don't know what to accomplish, dude. He's got Kelly talking about a lawsuit.
Now, obviously, you don't want to look like a coward for chickening out from talking to a guy you just called weak and said you weren't afraid of. So now you're going to obviously say you're just cautious over the possibility of a lawsuit. You know, the kind of lawsuit you also just said you had no reason to be afraid of. You know, because everything you said is 100% on point. So there's no reason to fear any charges of slander or defamation, right? It's also fair to show how Ohm wants to make it clear he's not doing this for personal gain. He really is doing this for the victims, and that he won't stop until they get justice, even if it means his channel is completely destroyed along the way or something like that.
Like, listen, I don't care if my channel dies at this point. It doesn't matter, dude. I'll fall on the sword for essentially the good of the freaking victims.
And just to update you and let you know, he is still fighting the good fight. I don't see an ounce of quit in this man. I'm sorry, what was that? We've just been informed that apparently directly after this interview, which was around the time 3 of his claims that he posted on Twitter were provably debunked, and after Ohm was called out by girls who claimed that he used them, and after losing several thousand subscribers and followers, Ohm has apparently shut the f*** up and gone back to making videos and streaming. He went a while without tweeting, but when he came back to Twitter, he just turned off the ability for people to reply, and so far we have seen and heard nothing regarding an FBI investigation and or any court cases regarding the issues. Nor has Ohm presented the real, undeniable evidence that he claims was just going to be this big bomb drop of stuff that was going to be way better than the stuff he's already presented. That didn't happen either. And again, if there is any validity at all, even if it's small, regarding these accusations of more monsters hiding within the VANOSS crew, I hope that the truth gets out there. If there is something nefarious to be exposed, I really deep down hope that the FBI is involved in some way. But after seeing the countless occasions of contradictions, insinuations, and backpedaling that came from the man spearheading this crusade, forgive me for remaining a bit skeptical. Anyways, that's it for now. Please be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Comment down below. Keep the conversation going, and I'll catch you guys next time.